Hi, Misha here, and we've talked quite a bit in the past and in the present about the Spanish CETME L and its variants, but from time to time we like to get this one out because it's really the only true import semi-automatic CETME we've ever been able to get in America. This is the Modello Sporter or Sport, and it was imported by Mars of Chicago, Illinois, back in the 60s, and it is essentially a semi-automatic version of the Model 1964, also known as the Model C. Of course, chambered for 7.62 NATO 308, and pretty interesting. And I've had a few of these, and in fact, I intentionally kept the least nice of maybe the three I had because I did want to make it a, from time to time shooter. I think the CETME kind of gets a bit of a name in America that's somewhat undeserved because of all the Century builds, because of all the inexpensive kits. And of course, this is a roller delayed blowback gun. And as you know, this is actually what the famous Heckler & Koch G3 was not just based on, but was actually a licensed production copy variation of for the Bundeswehr. But anyway, during the eclipse, we had this out, and we put a few rounds through it, recorded a few, so yeah, let's let it get dusted off the fun way. CETME. No hold open. Yeah, now I will say, for an HK type gun, this has a nice trigger, especially when the recoil kind of gets you. You can get a double tap in really good. It's definitely one of the better triggers. And to be fair, that's kind of the point of this. Compared to the military guns, CETME in Spain put a lot of care into these as they were exporting them. For example, they X-rayed them to make sure everything was good. They ground the welds very flush, kind of a nicer type phosphate finish, very smooth. Instead of having the claw mount, they put these, I guess you call them Weaver style. It's kind of a proprietary mount on top, to kind of gussy her up. And in fact, the furniture they originally shipped with was a much more polished furniture. It had a rubber recoil pad that said CETME. They even went to the trouble of polishing the plastic pistol grip. It's still a plastic grip, not wood, but they polished it. It's shiny. In fact, here's the original furniture. Take a look. It may be difficult to make out on camera, but this is a much glossier. You can tell it's the same pistol grip. The one on my gun is actually from an armorer's kit, so it was unissued but kind of old stock. And it has a very matte finish. And same goes for this buttstock. I know there's a little bit of discoloration to it, probably just storage or whatever, but it has the original kind of ribbed but curved butt plate made of rubber. But then we look at this one. Notice it has very much a kind of a sporting shotgun style butt plate. It is slightly longer, and like I said, it does say CETME on it. It's kind of funny because, yeah, you have a hard time not noticing that. It does have the storage holes for the pins, but notice these have wood and then metal around them, and these are just straight wood. I feel like the sling swivel slot is maybe made out a little different. You can also see the very smooth phosphate on this versus the kind of rougher. Oh, it's probably just dry. Probably could use a little oiling phosphate on this one. course, me being me, I wanted a gun that looked like a Model C, so I took that off. Other small changes they made. Originally, it didn't ship with the bayonet lug, although it did have a muzzle device flash rider, even still had the ring here. And it did have a push pin lower, but in addition to just having a semi-Mac only selector, they put a dimple in the side so a full auto trigger pack couldn't go in. They also moved the push pin back. On a military gun, it would have been just a little bit further forward here. And notice that there's no paddle mag release, but it's still fed from standard CETME 20 round steel mags, and these are often seen as interchangeable with HK. Not really, sort of, kind of, maybe. They have more of a curved profile, they're steel, nice mags, and they even have a little short one, which is, you know, kind of fun. Mags, so CETME, original HK steel, later HK alloy. So visually, very easy to tell. We have 2 overstops, 3, and also the rib pattern is different. The floor plates are actually very similar. Keep in mind, the initial G3 mag was very much based on the CETME, and somewhat more subtle. This is more or less a straight wall mag, vertically speaking, and this has a nice gentle curve to it, which I actually do find aesthetically pleasing. You can kind of see a little bit of difference there. And of course, the alloy is the alloy. So, how do the HKs fit and function in the CETME? The steel does go in, even lines up, but what I notice fitting it in, it's tight in the back area. In the front, it's fine, and once you get it in, it's not even in there tight, but there's a little bit of something in the upper part that you have to overcome as you put it in. Now, as far as how well it'll function, generally okay. Of course, you know, quality of the mag, but I've just always found that in CETME's mags work best. In pulling it out, I think this is the culprit. I could be wrong. This does have a raised piece back here. Of course, you have this kind of cut down. And this has more of a raised area here. Just enough, and that's about where I was feeling resistance, that I think that might be what's dragging. And then let's try out the alloy. And pretty much the same results. Had to kind of overcome some resistance back here. It even kind of teeter-totters at that point. And you can even see there's a little bit more of a gap. Just a little bit back here versus up here. I'm kind of nitpicking. And then it goes in, and it does have plenty of play. And of course, these mags are very inexpensive even today. So they will work. CETME mags, of course, they were produced in much smaller numbers. But back when the kits were coming in, you could get them. Anyway, your mileage may vary. Like I said, sometimes they work fine. Sometimes they fit. Sometimes they function. Sometimes they'll fit but not function. You just have to trial and error. Sorry, I wish I had a more definitive answer. But they're very, very closely related, but also just a smidgen different. So yeah, I militarized mine a bit, but I didn't ever modify it in any ways that could not be reversed, because these are pretty rare. I did add a bayonet lug. The cleaning kit tube is behind. And I've got a couple of bayonets that will fit this. Doot. Doot. This is more the style you seem to find on the stuff. Like FR7, FR8s. Which is a whole deal in and of itself. Oops. That kind of classic Spanish top mount. And this is kind of the more modern style. And this version here, as far as I know, was made for the CETME itself, and I think it was an export pattern. Fits a little tight. There we go. Notice that unlike the Spanish version, it does have a fuller groove, blood groove. Just kind of their unique top mount that they like to do. But again, to put a lug on, it's a little spring-loaded pin, very easy to do. And again, these took standard magazines. We didn't do a lot of shooting with this, and this isn't a gun that I do shoot frequently for obvious reasons. They only brought over 800 to 1250. Mars worked with CETME around 1964. That was right when the Model C was replacing the original Model B. And they started bringing these in around 65, 66. It was before the 68 Gun Control Act. And importation seems to have ended around 70, 71, although it might have taken them a little while to sell these off because they didn't sell very well. So some came in before 68, some came in after, but since they were already kind of ATF approved, not a whole lot changed. And what's crazy is, even though not that many came in, they almost always sell for less and are less desirable compared with like an HK 41, which are pretty rare too, or HK 91, which compared to these are super common. But it kind of goes to show you what people know and are familiar with is what they look for and buy. And again, it's kind of a shame that CETMEs have the reputation in America that they do, because they are pretty nice guns. And with that, let's let J-Ro try it out and get his thoughts. What do you think?
Well, it's punchy. I think it's funny. You and I have talked so many times about rock and locks, and this is like a halfway rock and lock.
Yeah, it's not really, like, but it's not straight in.
It doesn't have that release way back here, but you still kind of have to seat it.
Yeah.
It's still kind of got some of that rock and lock problem, but I will say that, like, I mean, right now the sling's just kind of in my way.
Yeah.
But no, this actually seats much better than like a full-on AK-47 rock and lock. I do like the bolt release. It, slap forward real easy. Shoots clean. I mean, it's kind of punchy, but I like it. I like the trigger. Overall, no complaints.
Rarely delayed guns. I think J-Ro, much like myself, kind of used to shooting FALs, gas pistons. But I do think compared to a lot of your G3s, the buffer in this is heavier, so it is a little light recoiling comparatively. SAR3 again. Of course, here's the recoil spring, but the actual buffer is back here that the bolt group ends its travel on. And this is a bit of a heavier setup than you find on a lot of your G3 types, HK91 types, at least as a general rule. And to me, that does make the CETME feel a little nicer. And of course, that's in this military stock as well. But yeah, let's try bipods. Kind of a neat little Spanish Army device, and it would actually continue in service with the L. And it clips onto this lug here. And it's actually pretty neat. It's got little pivots built in. And it even has, the short leg or long leg. I mean, nothing crazy on the adjustments, but, some. Some is better than none. So it's a pretty light and well thought out pod. And this little belt pouch is kind of the same. It's very light. Doesn't really have a fastener. You just kind of the spring tension holds it in. But yeah, we just want to run a couple of mags through it, and it's very reliable, very fun. Takes standard mags. And if you don't know about the Mars, check it out. They're pretty cool. We've covered it in the past, and I'm sure we'll cover it again. It's just kind of one of those hidden gems that are in America. And again, the only really legitimate Spanish CETME made 100% gun. And even though I don't like that they were sporterized with their furniture and everything, that was kind of the trend in the 60s. People weren't into military collecting, Cold War collecting, certainly not. The Vietnam War, once it kind of kicked off, really made military guns kind of undesirable to a lot of folks. And so when you'd see imports, they'd actually try to distance themselves. Look at the early BM-59s, for example. But of course, today things have changed. And I am at least happy, aside from the weird scope mounts. It's pretty easy to put these to rights, and that if I needed to sell it or whatever, I could put the sporter stuff back on and whatnot. But I did pick this one. It's got a little bit of kind of rust and stuff down here just from age. But the other one I had before was just so minty. I always felt bad shooting it. This is a pretty early one. The earliest ones actually had a Model B style bipod handguard, but otherwise were Model Cs. I think they were just using up parts. I think the earliest serials were in like, I think it was 21, like 90 something. So this is 22. The other one I had was like 24 something. They run through that up to the 3s. So that's the range you see. But yeah. Do you have any kind of pre-ban guns that you really like but are kind of unknown or just lesser known? Let's share them in the comments, and we'll try to put some more rounds to this next time. It's just we've had limited time, and with the cost of 308, you know how it is. And with that, if you could help us out on Patreon to buy more 308, that'd be great. If not, liking, sharing, and subscribing, it's all good too. And we will keep doing our part, keep shooting guns. Like J-Ro said, you got a little HK mark there. With that, we'll catch you very soon next time.